I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange. Hey there, spooky nerds. Welcome to Talking Strange, a paranormal pop culture show with the Den of Geek network. As always, I'm your host, journalist, author, researcher of weird things, Aaron Sagers. You can also catch me on 28 Days Haunted on Netflix and Paranormal Caught On Camera on Travel Channel and the Max streaming service. And my guest today has been on the show multiple times. He's one of my favorite people to talk to because I'm a big fan of his work, and I just really love nerding out with him. He's a super cool dude. He is effects guru, director, and Walking Dead universe producer, Greg Nicotero. Greg's also the showrunner for Creepshow, the horror anthology series on Shudder. And honestly, I love Shudder. It is a excellent horror streaming service, and they're not paying me to say this. So if you are not subscribing to Shudder, honestly, what's up? Seriously, you need to get on the ball. Anyhow, Creepshow is premiering its fourth season on Friday, October 13th with a super-sized night of 6. Count them, 6 episodes. And in addition to being the showrunner for Creepshow, Greg Nicotero directs 2 stories this season titled 20 Minutes with Cassandra and George Romero in 3D. And since Nicotero is a protege of Tom Savini and George Romero, you can expect that we'll have some Romero talk in this interview. Anyhow, he joins me to discuss the season of Creepshow, and of course we also talk about the new Walking Dead Daryl Dixon series as it also heads into its season finale. So Creepshow is kicking off and Daryl Dixon's season is wrapping up. We chat about super soldier zombies and the evolution of the walkers in Daryl Dixon, and also just about how The Walking Dead is fun once again for Greg Nicotero. So let's throw it to the interview with Greg Nicotero. Hey, Greg, good to talk to you again, man. How are you?
Hi, Aaron. I love the shirt.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's so seasonal. I even have my little ghosty hat on,
Oh,
too.
wait, hold on. Where's my favorite? I have to show you my favorite sweatshirt. Hang on. Which I wear literally every single day. I think the Daryl Dixon crew is getting tired of seeing it because it's but yeah, this is our season, man. I mean, I love that Halloween is becoming more popular than Christmas, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny because it's oh, I do love that. Who designed that, actually?
There's a guy in Georgia owns a company called Dark Cycle, and he has a whole line of shirts with different things riding a bicycle, like a T-Rex, a shark, a tarantula, a lemur, an armadillo. So like my family and I went to a swap meet in Peachtree City, and we saw it, and we fell in love with this guy's stuff. And he's had the ghost riding the bicycles, and I bought it and I wore it in Paris on set every single day. So that's how they could find me. Like the first AD would be like, "Where's the ghost on the bicycle?" Oh, there's Greg right there. So
It's great because, so like I do on my end, outside of the journalism thing, I do a lot of spooky TV shows like paranormal stuff uh research like lore and legends and everything. And yet
really,
it's not like heavy darkness because I like to combine the fun with the spooky. And
yeah,
I feel like we're allowed to do that now, right? Like it used to be you were either the horror kid over here or you were the normie over there, and now we're all allowed to
interesting.
be the spooky nerds.
Yeah, yeah. Look, when I was a kid, nerds were like the little circle with a line through it. I was the kid who loved Land of the Giants and Star Trek and Lost in Space and shit
Hmm.
like that. So
Yeah,
um
it's
anyway,
spooky season is now this year round. It's like a lifestyle. It's like it's not just Halloween time, as you said. I think I mean, not to get too deep, but looking back on your work, do you think like, hey, I was a part of that, the normalizing of being the horror fan and being the spooky nerd?
yeah, I had never thought of it that way because again, when I grew up, I was born 1963, so I came through, all the Star Trek and Irwin Allen stuff and the disaster movies and Jaws and all that kind of stuff. So, when makeup effects and horror movies really kind of started to hit their stride in the mid 70s, and like Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th, American Werewolf in London, those were like a different kind of fandom, because those people were obsessed with the gore and obsessed with death and the killings, and everybody kind of thought, oh well, it's like a subsection of nerds. But interesting, you had Fangoria magazine, but a lot of people don't even remember that when those movies came out and were played in the UK, they were censored.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were lucky because at least there was an opportunity to release a movie like Dawn of the Dead unrated, or Mother's Day, I think, might have been unrated, or Maniac. I can't remember all of them. Whereas, a lot of those movies were censored when they were, overseas. So, there was this fascination. And I was telling somebody the other night that our country by nature was built on rebellious people. It was built on these people that, like, oh, you tell me that I can't do this? Well, watch me. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to prove to everybody that I can do it. And that's sort of the DNA of this country. So for me, it really was sort of sticking to my guns and falling in love with all of those movies. And so I think Walking Dead had a tremendous amount to do with that. Because if you really think about zombie movies prior to Shaun of the Dead or Resident Evil or 28 Days Later, isn't a zombie movie. Most zombie movies were unrated, super gory, had a very niche audience. So I think in terms of making things appeal to a broader spectrum, I think Walking Dead was definitely in a huge part responsible for opening up this genre to a lot of people.
I think also, honestly, I look at something like From Dusk Till Dawn and, going back obviously a few years even before Walking Dead. And
Yeah.
this is just off the top of my head. It's not, I don't have like the academic research to back it up, but just anecdotally, it seemed like that was a movie when I was going to see it. I don't know, I was probably in high school or something at that point. And it was one where it's like, oh, we're going to see this Tarantino, a little bit of the old ultra violence, but oh wow, crap! Now we have this super great gory horror film and vampire flick happening at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit of a mashup, I
Yeah,
mean, Quentin Quentin wrote that script in exchange for us doing the makeup effects for Reservoir Dogs. So we had been friends with him for quite a long time. But I think that was a unique situation. And again, a bit of a crossover, because
yeah,
really the first half of the movie is a crime drama. And then once they get into the titty twister, and I think I'll never forget, in the script it literally said, "And all hell breaks loose." That was the only line in the script. And then from there on in, we would just run to set, show Robert Rodriguez some gags. Hey, what do you think if we did this? And he'd be like, great, do it. Or we'd be on set and Robert would pitch an idea, and I would run back to our workshop on stage and build it and then come back out and shoot it. It was really that kind of thing. But
yeah.
that movie for sure. But it's strange because, you know, I still think people forget, like in regards to the gore and stuff, that Halloween, the original Halloween, had no gore in it. When they did the remakes were so gory, and it just felt like it wasn't the same spirit with which John had intended the original movie to be, which was, you really didn't see anything happen. It was much more about the terror of this unstopping creature. And then you had the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. even the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you didn't see a lot of the gore.
Yeah.
So I think the gore was really introduced more into, you get into the 70s, and then with Tom Savini and um, Rick Baker and Rob Bottin and Stan Winston, those guys. If you really want to be honest, I think a lot of it had to do with the acceptance and the desire to do more gore in movies. Because if you think about anything prior to 1970, even The Exorcist, which had some great makeup effects in it, wasn't a gory movie. It was shocking. So I think it went from let's do things to shock people to then the audience responded so much to those shocking moments that the filmmakers and the effects artists started pushing it more and more. And sometimes it was like more blood, more blood, more blood. And then of course, you end up in the Dead Alive
Hmm.
Peter Jackson world, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's a great point too. It's a conversation I kind of have with people that something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Halloween or Exorcist looms large, and they have the impression that it was a lot gorier than they were or showing more than it did. And it's like, no, that's just effective filmmaking. That you got the sense that your brain filled in these gaps, and that's the beauty of the storytelling. And Creepshow season 4. It's a show. I just continue to love what Shudder's doing over there, and I continue to love Creepshow, especially having been such a fan at such a young age of the original film, from Romero and from George and Stephen King. But has there been an evolution to your approach to this show? And sort of the second part of that is, when you're dealing with an anthology show, do you approach it with a season mission? Can it have a season mission when it's by nature all of these individual stories?
That's I never really thought of it as a season mission. I would think that from season 1 to season 2, there was a massive evolution in the show, because I was coming off of a Walking Dead hiatus, and then we went right into season 1 of Creepshow. So it was a huge learning curve for me. When we hit season 2, which was ironically during the pandemic, and we shot season 2 and 3 back to back, I was infinitely more confident in the material and what we were able to do in the time frame that we had to film these episodes. So I came off of season 2 and 3 feeling really good about the storytelling. I really like the idea that we can have a little bit of a, social commentary in there, that we're talking to, relevant, situations. I know the drug traffic episode that we did with Michael Rooker was really relevant. There's a lot of episodes in season 4, but I think what ended up happening on season 4 too was I had been exposed to a lot of new writers and loved a lot of the writers that I had worked with on season 2 and 1, 2, and 3. So the idea was, okay, how do I get a chance to use all these amazing people that I've worked with? I only have so many stories to do. So, I got a chance to work with Jamie Flanagan, who I absolutely loved his work on Midnight Mass, and I got to be good friends with him and Mike, his brother. So I was all of a sudden found myself kind of reaching out to these writers whose work I had admired and had been more recently introduced to. So I don't think that there's a mission statement overall, because like you said, it's such an anthology show that I wanted all the episodes to feel different. The idea is, it's like when you watch one story and you're left with one feeling, whether it's outrageous or a little scary or suspenseful or gory, then the next story gives you a different experience. So I feel, looking for stories for this season, there were a couple in there that I absolutely fell in love with. that I think I had to kind of push the network in the right direction to say, guys, this story is pure creep show. Like George Romero in 3D, which is by nature, everybody kind of just thought, oh, we're not sure if that story is right and it might be too expensive. I said, yeah, but you don't understand. This is a creep show. This is such a creep show story. This story doesn't exist in any other universe other than a universe that was created by George Romero. So I really was 100% committed to making sure that story was part of season 4.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean I want to get into that a little bit, just because I know you directed two stories
Yeah.
this season, and we had 20 minutes with Cassandra and then the George Romero in 3D, and which I enjoyed both of those stories for very different reasons. But George Romero in 3D, obviously it's the perfect one for you to direct, but it's it's also just I think this is the most blatant Romero Valentine yet in Creepshow, because you've had a lot of pretty strong Romero Valentines, but this is the most obvious, I think.
Yeah, I would have to say, without a doubt, this is definitely the one that really speaks to my my love for everything that George has done for the fans and done for people. You know, the characters are named Martin. You know, the characters named Dawn and Martin, and
Cooper.
even so much so that the costume looks like, yeah, that Martin's costume looks like John Amplis's costume from Martin. You know, so it really was a really great opportunity. The idea when I first read the script, and it was like, oh, they bring zombies out of the comic book with 3D. You know, I know George loved 3D movies, and he loved the idea of that sort of technology. You know, he had talked at one point about doing a couple of 3D movies um, years and years and years ago. So I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting because not a lot of people know that George had this fondness for 3D movies. So I thought it would be really fun. And of course, I pitched to the network and said, Invisible Zombies. We've never done Invisible Zombies. Like, how can you beat that? So for me, just the ideas of like seeing somebody being bitten and attacked, and then you put the glasses on and oh shit, there's the zombie. And you take the glasses off and the guy's bent over backwards with blood spraying out of his neck was really super fun for me. So, you know, ironically, I think that the Dawn of the Dead homage of the helicopter blade was not in the original script. And I think at one point we had come up with this idea that there was a military section in the store, and somebody gets a little remote control helicopter and flies the helicopter towards the zombie. And we were just like, man, you know, we got to be a little more clever than that because that seems a little too on the nose. And then I kind of went, wait a minute, why don't we just put a ceiling fan in the room and use the ceiling fan? So everything about that, you know, talking about Image 10 and Pittsburgh, and that used to be his office, you know, and it really, I just had so much fun, and the actors also were so committed and had such a great time. You know, there's Easter eggs all over the place. There's little Night of Living Dead figures on the counter, and a lot of the stuff that we did was 100% relevant to George's interests and the stuff that he loved. So I think for sure that's probably the ultimate love letter to George. And I hope people dig it because it's just outrageous and fun. And again, my whole job here really is to keep the spirit of everything that George did alive. I mean, I'm doing it in a different way with The Walking Dead because George was the guy who created the zombie genre. He created it. He's the one that wrote the rules. You got to shoot it in the head. You get bit by one and you come back. I mean, people that think that these rules are part of now pop culture were all created by George and Jack Russo and Russ Streiner. So for me, being able to carry on that legacy and the legacy of everything that he's created. It's me really desperately wanting for people to remember the maverick filmmaker that he was. And a lot of these other filmmakers that aren't with us anymore, Wes Craven and Toby Hooper. And, it's really important, it's important that we embrace the people that inspired us.
Yeah. Well, with the George Romero in 3D, some of my favorite moments throughout my career is I was able to spend a lot of time with George through interviews, and then just through some various other friends of friends. And I laughed out loud the couple times in this episode where Martin, or one of the characters, refers to them as zombies, and he's like, "Well, actually, ghouls." That was great.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping Shudder does not miss the opportunity to send out a press kit with 3D glasses in the shape of George's glasses.
Well, and again, that was one of my little things. I kind of just said, look, the glasses have to look like George's glasses. People thought I was kind of crazy when I said that. But I said, there's something about he used to wear these giant uh, wide framed glasses. And look, my original hope was that we were going to go through interviews and piece together all of George's dialogue from original interviews, because we had really good luck with that when we did Night of the Living Late Show with Dana Gould. Dana scoured Horror Express to find the moments that we could use to put to have the dialogue with Justin and the characters. But with this one, we just didn't have the time. I didn't have the time. So we ended up hiring an actor that looked like him, and then we ended up hiring an actor to do the voice. I still wish that we had been able to sort of cobble together George's interviews. I subsequently got a lot of interviews on audio from a friend that George had done right before he had passed away, which are hours and hours of him talking. And I probably could have put something together, but of course, it was a little too late at that point.
Yeah. Is it for you? Was it an interesting challenge? Because obviously the Romero ghouls, even what they kind of became by the end of George's films, and what Walking Dead does with the walkers, they're different kinds of zombies. And now you have this episode where you have, you and K and B are putting together zombies that are not Walking Dead zombies, and they're not specifically George's zombies. We're kind of getting this hybrid of these two. Just kind of walk me through that. Maybe I'm missing it here, but they're clearly not walkers.
No. I mean, the aesthetic for, it's kind of funny because if you really think about it, the zombies in Land of the Dead were precursors to The Walking Dead. So I think the makeup effects in The Walking Dead benefited from the fact that I had done all the zombie makeups on Land of the Dead. In terms of the contact lenses and the dentures and this kind of stuff, we evolved the look even further based on the inspiration from Tony Moore's artwork in the original graphic novel. But these zombies are probably more, the needle would skew more towards the Romero world, because I think we had one zombie that was dressed like a butcher, because we had kind of done a little homage to the butcher from Dawn of the Dead. But for me, they're less Walking Dead, and I didn't want them to look like Walking Dead zombies,
Right?
Because I didn't think that would make any sense. But if you look at the main zombie that gets decapitated, we recreated the helicopter zombie makeup from Dawn of the Dead. Like, we had the whole headpiece on him the whole time, just like Tom did in that movie. So I don't think you see it coming, but for us, we kind of giggled the whole time when we were on set with that. And literally accomplished the gag the exact same way. We had blood tubes running up to the top of the head, and we pulled the top of the head off with monofilament, just like Tom had done, like, I don't know, 40 years ago, 35 years ago.
How how is this show? I don't want to suggest that everything you've done on The Walking Dead and now with Daryl Dixon, you've had such an incredible run and professional evolution as well. And then you're doing Creepshow. How is this like a different fun flavor for you? Because tonally it's a lot different. And it
Yeah.
seems like this has been it's almost like I can pick up the Nicotero glee coming through the screen with Creepshow.
Well, I think it's there. I mean, the fact that I get to choose the stories, I get to collaborate with the writers, and then get to collaborate with the directors. It's like there's a lot of me in all of the episodes. I get to work with the directors and then casting the actors. I really get a chance to kind of get in there with them. So it's almost um, it's almost like me sort of handing off these little babies and saying, okay, you go grow that baby and you go grow that baby. And then they blossom into these episodes. But they are fun, man. I mean, the parent death trap with the ghosts. Like, I read that script. I literally laughed out loud when I read that script. That was the first day of shooting. That was the first episode, and I went out and we were shooting the first scene. PJ Pesh, my friend, was directing, and the two actors are there. The mom and the dad are there in the ghost makeup. And I went up to them and I just said, "Look, be as outrageous. This story is so over the top and so outrageous, and I really want you guys to play it big, because what pulls it back is his reaction to you. So the bigger that you go, the funnier it will be when he reacts, when the son reacts that way." So I just have fun. I read the stories. I read a lot, and when I go through the scripts and I go through even the stories that are pitched, and I'm like, I love this one. Yeah, not so much. And then there's always the one in the middle where I'm like, yeah, this is a great idea here. Maybe we can develop this one into something. But generally speaking, the home runs are the ones um, that get made, and they're the ones that I have the most fun with, and you can tell they're fun. At least I can. Um, so yeah, I think that they're having evolved from The Walking Dead, which again, I think, interestingly enough, The Walking Dead also is so serious. The content, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of comedy in The Walking Dead. It's everything is super heavy. I think I directed one. There was a season premiere, season 5. There was a moment with Morgan and Rick and Michonne, and I'll never forget it. And they were standing on this road, and they had created these roadblocks to divert a whole zombie horde around Alexandria. And there was a joke where uh, Morgan accuses Michonne of eating one of his candy bars, and I just played with that joke for a while because I thought it was really funny to have these looks between the both of them, and just like, she's lying to him, but he knows that she's lying. And I really played into it, and we had a really, really good time. And afterwards, Andy came over to me and was like, "That was fucking fun." I said, "Yeah, we don't get a chance to do the lighter moments in the show because it's always so bleak." So with Creepshow, I really do love playing into it. And I don't get a lot of chance on the other shows to have that kind of fun. So to be on set and to be giggling, Shapeshifters Anonymous, which is a really, really wacky, um, super wacky, outrageous um, episode. What was fun was, I think that was a direct correlation to coming off of season 1. And season 1 was a little intimidating for me. So when we got to season 2, and I thought, no, I'm going to spread my wings a little bit. Like, if Tim Burton were to direct a Creepshow episode, it would be really crazy and really outrageous and really fun. So Shapeshifters Anonymous is a direct result of me really wanting to sort of shed any um, aversion to just kind of throwing it all out there, to to have a group of people sitting around turning into different animals, and Santa Claus being the ultimate werewolf killer. It I had so much fun and laughed, literally giggled on set with the actors. And I just thought, I want to have some fun like that. I want to be able to sit on set and giggle and have a good time, and just kind of be a little light, because you're supposed to have fun when you're doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, the 20 minutes with Cassandra, the first story of the
Yeah.
premiere episode of season 4, it's you have these gory moments, or nice bloody horror moments, and then this literal kind of sit down with the monster. And I really like, I really was already a fan of Jamie Flanagan's writing, and I think the actors in this just really bring this on home. And I was familiar with
Yeah.
Ruth Codd from some of Flanagan's work as well, and
Mm-hmm.
and
Samantha.
so with that one, for you, what was it that made you want to direct 20 minutes with Cassandra, and talk about, I guess, just that kind of story where it's like you have this nice big monster reveal, and then it's this kind of sit down, heart to heart.
It was so different. It was so different. I had never read anything like it. First of all, we called Jamie because I had seen Midnight Mass and we were looking for writers. And he's like, yeah, I don't really have anything. But I'm really, delighted. Excuse me. I'm delighted that you thought of me. Hangs up the phone. 20 minutes later, my phone rings. Hey, I think I got something. And I said, okay. So he writes the story and sends it to me, and I read it, and immediately uh, I wanted more. I just sent it to the network and said, I'm directing this. This is our premiere episode. I see the whole thing. And, Jamie and I became joined at the hip. He was really fascinated the with the process. And I said, dude, just come shadow me. Like, you can come sit in on the meetings, come to set. We really never had the opportunity to have any writers on set, but it was the tone. I loved the idea of this woman who's isolated herself, and then all of a second, her entire world is turned upside down by this woman who barges into her house and sets up this completely insane story of, in 20 minutes, you're going to die. And there's nothing I can do with it. I was so instantly captivated with that story. So we started talking about casting, and, because I had seen Midnight Mass, we started talking about Samantha, who I was absolutely enthralled with. And I went to the network and said, look, it's all this whole thing is already here. Jamie has a lot of the same sensibilities that Mike does. It's that sort of ensemble piece, and you play into the ensemble and you write these great parts for your troupe. And that's where, I have a lot of experience with that with Quentin, and even more so with Frank Darabont. I mean, I remember working on, the Green Mile, um, or the Majestic, and it's always the same troupe. It's Jeff DeMunn, and it's Laurie Holden, and it's Tom Jane, and Frank, and people like Frank. Like, they use the same actors. They have this troupe, and the fun part of that is that that troupe gets to play all these different people. So we got Samantha, we got Ruth instantly, and I kind of thought, okay, it took a lot of the pressure off of me, because I knew that they were both, like, really, really seasoned. And the first weekend that they got there, we did a table read, and Samantha had a Creepshow T-shirt on her. I'm like, come on, really? And she's like, I swear to God, I didn't even realize that I was wearing this T-shirt. But we had 3.5 days to shoot that episode, and I don't think Samantha blew her lines once. She and Ruth had been working on Mike's other show.
Sure.
Crap, I can't remember. No, 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 no.
Oh,
Yes, but
Midnight
the
Club.
other one, Midnight Club. I'm sorry. I was going to say Midnight Mass, but I knew I was wrong. They had been working on Midnight Club. So Samantha and Ruth were learning their lines for Creepshow while they were working on Mike's show. So when they came into it, and Ruth used to be a makeup effects artist. So she had done makeup. So we kind of all really hit it off. We had a good time. I think we were kind of all sort of slightly in awe of each other. Like I would look over and see them and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're here," and they were like, "We can't believe we're here." It's really a unique experience. And Jamie too. Jamie would sit beside me while we were shooting every episode. When the scene with the pizza guy, it's just such a beautifully written scene. I mean, the cut for the episode came in probably 5 or 6 minutes longer, and we had to squeeze, and it was literally like it was like pruning the beautiful roses out of the garden. I hated doing it, but it was like we would just take a little couple two lines of dialogue out of here and a piece out of here and a piece out of here. It was just trying to keep the entire bit consistent. But that scene with the pizza delivery guy was just one of the most beautiful. And I remember saying to Jamie when we were scouting locations and we found the house, and I said, she's got to be up on the balcony because this is Romeo and Juliet. I want this to be like a really strange love story. She's not just out the window looking out the window, but she's got to be above him looking down. And when he gets back into the car and there's that shot cut, I think in the original script, like he bolts into the window and grabs her, or he pops up from the back seat. And I just said, the less we see of this monster, the better. So I love the idea of he's just in the car and then the blood hits the windshield and the car just slowly backs. There's something so sad about it. I didn't want it to be violent or gross or horrific. I wanted it to be sad. I wanted that moment to really show how Samantha's character just was heartbroken by the loss of this person who she had just met and found this really nice connection.
Yeah, it's a great episode with just incredible dialogue. I absolutely loved that story, and
Me too. Me too.
my bosses would kill me if I didn't try to slip in a Daryl Dixon question, if I may.
Of course, please.
Okay, well, we've used the word evolution a couple times in this interview about your career and about Creepshow, but we're also seeing this evolution with Daryl Dixon, the series. Well, one thing is like zombie super soldiers, man. Like you're
Yeah.
evolving our walkers. So just that's kind of mind blowing. We've been living with sort of this static. We kind of got the rules of the walkers for so long. Maybe seeing them climb or turn doorknobs, but even that was late in the game. So
Late in the game. Yeah.
the decision to do this, but where did this come from, and how are you feeling about, man, we're expanding this world?
It's funny because I think a lot of people would have assumed that I would have fought it because I'm a purist and I'm like, zombies are zombies and they don't really change. But in the past, like you said, the stuff that came up late in the game on Walking Dead didn't feel like it was earned. That variant that was introduced in the last half of the season of The Walking Dead, it didn't make any sense because it wasn't earned. They were like, oh well, if you go back to the first season, zombies used rocks and smashed windows, and I'm like, it didn't make any sense that after 11 seasons we had never seen any of that. But with this, we have the burners, and then we have the fact that the scientists are experimenting with them. And so we worked a lot with, David Zabel, and David and I really talked about, like, what do these things look like? What is the progression? And, I had pitched the idea of the tranquilizer darts with this fluid in it that sort of amps up the walkers for a short period of time. I mean, I don't even know if it comes through in the series just yet, but the idea is that those zombies are only amped up for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then they sort of fizzle out, and it doesn't work with every single one. But I loved the evolution of it. I loved that everything about Daryl Dixon is new and it's fresh. We have all of our writers are all new to the genre and new to the series. So they never wrote on a Walking Dead episode before. They brought new ideas, fresh ideas, interesting ideas. And, my job was really to provide some sort of continuity between the series, the original series, and Daryl Dixon, plus to sort of download to the new team, okay, here's some ways to do gags. Here's gags we've done before. Here's stuff we don't want to do again. But everything about the show feels new. And I'll be honest, when we wrapped the 12th season of Walking Dead and they started talking about doing spinoffs, I was like, oh my God, I just want to, can I not see a zombie for a minute? Can I just need a minute. And then when we did Dead City, honestly, Dead City, really, we had one big zombie, which was the Walker King, which was our sort of homage to John Carpenter and The Thing, and turned out really well. And it was like the coolest zombie that was in that show. But other than that, there wasn't a tremendous amount that evolved the zombies very much. But on Daryl Dixon, I feel like every swing was a big swing. And the location, it doesn't feel like we're in Paris to exploit Paris. Everything really all lays into this journey. And when we first found out that Daryl was going to France, people would stop me on the street. How does he get there? How does he get there? I'm like, I can't tell you that. It'll ruin the experience for you. And now finally we've revealed how he gets there. And that these people had been coming from France to the United States to harvest zombies, to take them across, to do experiments on them so that they could evolve them and use them as potential zombie soldiers. Now, if you think about it, I think in the original script for Day of the Dead, that was one of the things that they were doing, was that they were feeding zombies human flesh to train them to be soldiers. So it's not a new concept by any stretch of the imagination, but the fact that we have been able to really lean into it. And, I took a lot of inspiration from David Cronenberg and Dick Smith, like with scanners, the pulsating veins. And, I think the original idea was when a burner is near somebody, the veins start to pulse more, like the active ingredient is pulsing more. And I think in the first scene in episode 1, where Daryl's in the market and kills the burners, and you see the one zombie on the ground, you still see the veins pulsing. The idea was that that pulsing would stop, so that the burners are sort of activated when they're about to kill somebody or eat somebody or whatever. And then we have the amped up zombies, and we wanted that to be a little bit of a different experience. So whereas we had the sort of scanners, really thick, fluid-filled, light-colored veins, with the Ampers, it's more of a Sam Raimi Evil Dead tribute, where the black veins. I always remember in the first Evil Dead, where he did the stop motion. Remember when they would draw the veins on? And I think we did it in Evil Dead 2 on the hand, when Linda bit Ash's hand. We had that close up because I remember doing it, and we did stop motion where we drew the veins and we'd shoot a little bit and the veins would grow. So the Ampers is sort of more of a tribute to that demonic possession that we did where you see the black, you see the dart go in, and then the black veins sort of travel across the skin, and then the eyes go black. And again, I thought we needed to differentiate. If you look at the burner's eyes are kind of like a weird bright blue, almost like looking at the center of a candle or a flame, where it's like that blue hot. Um, and then the Emperor's eyes are black because that fluid sort of affects everything inside. So we just felt like not only physically did they need to act differently, but they needed something to identify them as different types of zombies other than our traditional ones.
Well, I know you got to go, but I just want to leave with a statement that, yeah, so it feels like with Daryl Dixon, you're leaving a lot on the field. You're putting a lot out there, and it does
Yeah.
feel, and this is no disrespect to the Walking Dead franchise that's been so had such a long life, but it feels like this is really a fresh coat of paint, and also feeling kind of fun in a new
Yeah.
way. And I hope you're
Yeah.
feeling that too.
Look, I was really honored, when they started prepping that show. Norman called me and said, look, we can't do the show without you. You're part of the DNA of The Walking Dead. Like, you were there. I was hired a year before Walking Dead ever went into production. So there's a huge part of me in The Walking Dead. Like, I feel like I'm part of the DNA of the show. And Norman really wanted me to be there to collaborate with the directors and the producers and the writers. And it took a minute for me to sort of convince myself that I wanted to do another zombie show. But then when I read the scripts and I met David Zabel, and I realized that he wasn't just rehashing everything that we had been doing, but that he wanted to do something dramatically different. And that's what excited me about it. And the show, all of the enthusiasm and the glee that Norman has for the show too, because Norman just loves every second of being in Paris and creating these great locations and going to Mont Saint Michel and going to the Louvre and the catacombs. And there's a glee that we all feel, and an appreciation that we all feel for being there and being able to tell the story. And it's crazy too. The first day we went to set with zombies, we did zombie school, and I did my auditions for all the local zombie actors, and I worked with a lot of the French stunt people and sort of told them this is how we do it. And then we evolved the performances for the amped up zombies and for the burners and stuff. But I'll never forget, first day on set, we walk in with 80 zombies, and the entire crew stopped and started applauding because they had never seen anything like that. We've been in Georgia for 12 years, where I think the first 2 seasons people would stop and go, oh my God, look at that zombie. But after 12 years, they're like, oh, eating a cheeseburger next to a rotted corpse. They just it didn't have the same impact. But in France, the crew and the people, it was like we were starting over. I really feel like Daryl Dixon is the way that it felt doing season 1 of The Walking Dead. The enthusiasm, the dedication to the story, the storytelling, the actor's performance, everything about it feels new and feels fresh. And I'm proud that came through, because Norman didn't want us to rehash it. I didn't want us to rehash it. We didn't want more of the same. And that's the one thing that you can say about Daryl Dixon is you watch it, you're getting a completely new experience. And that's what we set out to do. And we're really proud that we were able to accomplish that.
Well, congratulations, Greg, and thanks for
Thank
talking with
you.
me again. It's always a pleasure. Super
Yes.
stoked. New season of Creepshow begins
Yes.
this Friday, and
Whee!
more Daryl Dixon wrapping up the season. So hope we get the chance to talk again soon, Greg, but thank you
Me
again,
too.
sir.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, be
Okay.
well. Bye. And that was Greg Nicotero, showrunner for Creepshow, which is premiering its 4th season on Shudder on Friday, October 13th. And we also talked about the Walking Dead Daryl Dixon series, which has its season finale on Sunday, October 15th. And I'm Aaron Sagers, and that's it for me. That's it for this episode of Talking Strange, so thanks for hanging out with me. Until next time, you know the drill. Be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.